The old warehouse smelled like rust and broken dreams. Pushed through the door carefully, listening to the metal grind against its hinges. The sun was going down fast, and he did not want to be trapped in the industrial sector after dark. His boots kicked up dust as he walked deeper into the darkness. He was looking for copper wiring and steel parts. The colony needed these things and was good at finding them in places that most people had forgotten about. He had been scavenging for 5 years now, ever since he arrived on New Terra. The work was hard, but it kept him alive. The warehouse was 3 stories tall and mostly empty. Large machines sat in corners, covered in dust and rust. Climbed the metal stairs carefully. The 3rd level was where the good stuff usually was. That was where the managers had kept their tools and equipment before everything fell apart. He did not see the girl at first. She was wedged behind a broken piece of machinery, small and still like a hurt animal. Almost missed her completely. If the light had not come through the broken window at just the right angle, he would have walked right past. But something caught his eye, a shape that did not belong in the dust and metal. Stopped, he listened. No sound came from the girl. She was not moving, thought she might be dead. He moved closer slowly, not wanting to scare her if she was alive. The girl had skin the color of pale blue water. Her eyes were large and dark like nothing had ever seen before. She was alien without question, not human, not from Earth. Had seen aliens before, but only from a distance. The Empire kept them as slaves. They were dangerous, people said. They were different. You did not help them. You did not touch them. You reported them to the authorities. The girl was starving, could see this plainly. Her ribs showed through her thin skin. Her lips were dry and cracked. She had been here for a long time, hiding and trying not to die. Should have turned around and left. That was the smart thing to do. That was what any reasonable person would do. Instead, he knelt down beside her. The girl's eyes opened wider. Fear moved across her face like a shadow. "It is okay," said softly. His voice was gentle. "I am not going to hurt you." The girl did not understand his words. Her mouth opened, and sounds came out that could not comprehend. Strange sounds that hurt to hear, like metal scraping on stone. "I am," he said, pointing to himself. He spoke slowly and clearly. "What is your name?" The girl watched him carefully. Her body was tight, ready to run or fight. Could see her hands were shaking. She said finally, the word was broken and difficult but understood it, was her name. Repeated, "That is a pretty name." The girl did not know what to do with his kindness. She stared at him as if he was speaking a language that made no sense. Understood. In her life, kindness was probably not something she had received much of. Stood up slowly. He did not want to scare her by moving too fast. He reached into his pack and pulled out a container of soup. He had made it that morning before heading out. It was still warm, kept in a special container that kept food hot for hours. "Food," said. He opened the container and the smell of vegetable broth and salt filled the small space. "You are hungry. You need to eat." His nose picked up the smell. Her whole body changed. The fear did not disappear, but hunger was stronger than fear. She moved toward slowly, like an animal that was not sure if the food was a trap. Poured some of the soup into a cup. He blew on it to make it cooler so it would not burn her mouth. Then he handed it to her very carefully. Took the cup with both hands. She looked at it like it might disappear. Then she brought it to her lips and drank. Her eyes closed. Tears started to fall from her face. Let her drink slowly. He did not rush her. He understood that her body needed time to accept food after so long without it. When the cup was empty, he gave her more. They sat together in the dust and the dark and shared his soup with an alien girl. "Where is your mother?" asked while was eating. "Where is your family?" Did not understand all of his words. She pointed upward and made a sound like an explosion. She moved her hands like something falling from the sky. Then she made the sound of pain and sadness in her voice. Understood. There had been a crash. Her people had been in the sky and they came down hard. The transport said. He had heard the rumors 2 days ago. A slave transport had crashed in the industrial sector. People said there were survivors, but the soldiers had locked down the area. No one could get in or out without permission. "Your mother is alive?" asked. His face showed that she did not know. She gave more soup into her own empty cup and handed it back to him with a question in her eyes. Filled it again. They sat together as the sun finished going down and the stars began to come out. Did not think about the warnings his colony had given him. He did not think about the rules and the laws. He thought about a small girl who was hungry and alone, and he thought about how easy it had been to help her. When had eaten all the soup she could hold, her eyes became heavy. She fell asleep leaning against his shoulder, looked at her peaceful face and understood that he had made a choice that would change things, not just for her, for himself, for everyone. He did not know yet just how true that was. 3 days had passed since brought home. He had hidden her in the back room of his small house, the one that had no windows and only one door. He brought her food and water. He had given her clean clothes that he cut down to fit her small body. He tried to keep her calm and safe. But safety was becoming harder to find. Was in the colony market buying supplies when he felt the small hand grip his arm, stood beside him, dressed in the oversized human clothes he had given her. Her blue skin was covered by a long brown coat that hung down past her knees. Her large, dark eyes were wide with panic. She said, pulling at his sleeve, "Come, come now." Did not argue. Something in her voice told him this was urgent. He left the market stall and followed her through the narrow streets of the colony. Moved fast, pulling him away from the main road and toward the residential area where his house stood. That was when he saw the woman. She stood outside his house, dressed in black tactical clothing that was worn and stained from hard use. She was tall and muscular, with scars visible on her neck and hands. Her eyes were cold and measured, the eyes of someone who had seen violence and delivered it without hesitation. She watched and approached without moving. Immediately understood that this woman was mother. "You gave her food," the woman said. Her accent was thick, but her English was clear and direct. "You gave her shelter. You kept her alive." It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. The woman was not asking why he had done it. She already knew everything. "My name is," the woman said. She did not offer her hand. She did not smile. "I am's mother. I have come to thank you and I have come to warn you." Felt his throat become dry. "A patrol came through the settlement today," continued. "They are searching for the transport crash. They are searching for survivors. They are searching for my daughter. They will be coming to your house within the next few hours." His heart beat faster. "How long have you been waiting here?" "Long enough to know that you are a good man," said. "Long enough to understand that you helped my child when you had no reason to. Long enough to understand that you know nothing about who you have let into your life." Ran to her mother and wrapped her small arms around the woman's legs, placed one hand on the girl's head, and something soft moved across her face for just a moment. Then it was gone, and she was cold again. "Come inside," said. He did not think about what this would mean. He did not think about the rules of the colony or the danger he was bringing home. He just opened the door and let them in. Moved through the house like she was studying a building she might have to fight in. She looked at every door, every window, every piece of furniture. She opened the storage closet and looked at the supplies had gathered. She climbed the stairs to the upper floor and examined each room. "You have emergency supplies," she said when she came back down. "Water, food, medical equipment, good." "What are you?" asked. He had to know. He had to understand what he was dealing with. Looked at him directly. "I am a soldier," she said. "I have been fighting the Empire for 15 years. I was leading a group of resistance fighters when the transport crashed. We were trying to free our people. Most of my team died in the crash. Most of the slaves died as well. I was badly hurt. I thought my daughter was dead." lifted her shirt slightly, saw a long scar that ran across her stomach. It looked like it had been a serious wound. When my injuries healed enough, I began hunting, said. I followed the crash site. I searched for bodies. I found soldiers instead. Some of them I killed. Some of them are still out there, and they will come here looking for the ones who disappeared. Felt cold. This was what he had been afraid of. This was exactly the danger he had worried about. I can leave, said. I can take my daughter and disappear into the wasteland. You will be safe then. We'll assume the soldiers were killed in the crash. You will face no questions. No, said. He surprised himself with how quickly the word came out. You cannot travel with a child in the wasteland. You will not survive it. Studied him for a long moment. You would risk your life for people you do not know, for an alien and her child. I already did, said, when I gave the soup. Nodded slowly. Then we will prepare. Show me your house. Show me where you have weapons. Show me where we can defend if we must defend. For the next 3 hours and worked together. They moved furniture to create barriers. They identified places where someone could hide. Showed how to use the gun he kept in his closet, something he had never been comfortable with before. They made plans. They made backup plans. When the sun was setting, they sat together in the front room. Was asleep on the couch, her small body finally relaxed, stared out the window into the darkness. Why are you helping us? Asked without looking at. Thought about this question. He thought about soup and hunger and the simple choice to see someone as a person instead of a threat. Because it is the right thing, said. Turned to look at him. For a moment, her cold expression changed. Something almost like respect moved across her face. Then it was gone again, and she turned back to the window. Then we will find out together, said, if the right thing is enough to keep us alive. Outside in the darkness, the sound of vehicles approached the colony. The patrol was coming. The night was about to change everything. The vehicles arrived exactly when said they would. Heard them first, the heavy engines and the sounds of doors opening. He stayed in the front room with who was awake now and frightened. Had gone upstairs to watch from the bedroom window. There were 6 soldiers, could see them through the glass of his front door. They wore heavy armor that covered their entire bodies, and they moved with weapons ready. They were not there to ask questions politely. They were there to search, to take what they wanted, and to leave. The soldiers began moving through the neighborhood, stopping at each house. They knocked on doors. They demanded entry. They showed pictures to the residents, realized they were showing pictures of. Came down the stairs without making a sound. Did not even know she was there until he saw her standing beside him. She placed one hand on his shoulder and one hand on his head. Stay inside, said. Her voice was quiet but absolute. Do not come outside no matter what you hear. Do not watch, stay with, keep her calm. Where are you going? Asked, even though he already knew the answer. To buy you time, said. She walked to the door and opened it. Then she stepped outside and closed it behind her without hurrying. Wanted to follow her. Every part of him wanted to go outside and see what was happening, but he understood that had given him an order and he followed it. He held close and looked away from the window. But he could not help but glance out. What he saw in those few seconds would stay with him for the rest of his life. Walked toward the soldiers with her hands empty and visible. She moved slowly and carefully so they would not feel threatened. The soldiers pointed their weapons at her. One of them shouted something in the harsh language of the did not stop walking. Then everything happened too fast for to follow clearly. There was no sound of weapons firing. There was no explosion. There was only movement, swift and terrible and perfect. Moved like liquid, like she was water finding its way around stone. She moved through the soldiers without appearing to touch them, and one by one they fell. The first soldier went down when she struck his throat. His hands went up to his neck and he collapsed. The second soldier tried to raise his weapon but was already there, and she twisted his arm in a direction that arms should not go. The weapon fell from his grip. The remaining soldiers tried to attack her together. They were trained fighters equipped with armor and weapons, but was something else. She was not fighting them. She was taking them apart piece by piece, joint by joint, the way someone might disassemble a machine. There was nothing clumsy about it. There was nothing angry or wild. It was the work of someone who had done this hundreds of times and understood the human body better than the humans who lived in those bodies. It was beautiful and horrible at the same time. One soldier tried to run, caught him from behind. Her hands moved in a specific way and he fell instantly and did not get up. Another soldier managed to land a punch, but it was too slow. Was already gone, already moving, already finishing the work. It lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was done, 6 armored soldiers lay on the ground in front of his house. None of them were making any sound. None of them were moving. Stood in the center of them, breathing normally, not even in pain. She had blood on her black jacket. One of her sleeves was torn, but her expression was calm and empty, as if she had just taken out the garbage instead of killing 6 trained military personnel. She looked directly at its window for one moment. Then she turned away and walked back toward the house. Stepped back from the window. His heart was racing so fast he thought he might collapse. Was crying silently, her whole body shaking. Held her and did not let go. Came back inside. She closed the door carefully behind her. She walked to the kitchen and pulled off her torn sleeve. There was a cut beneath it, bleeding but not serious. She wrapped it with medical tape from the supply they had prepared. She did not speak about what had happened. She did not explain or defend what she had done. She simply cleaned her wound and returned to normal, as if nothing unusual had occurred. "We need to leave," said finally. "The colony will discover the bodies soon. There will be questions. There will be an investigation. We cannot be here when that happens." Wanted to speak. He wanted to ask questions. He wanted to understand how a person could be so efficient at killing, but the words would not come out. Ran to her mother and wrapped her arms around the woman. Held her daughter gently, and something real and warm moved across her face for the first time since she had arrived. "She is safe now," said to, "because of you, because you chose to give her soup instead of turning her away. I have spent 15 years fighting the Empire. I have killed many of them. But what you did with that one bowl of soup, it mattered more than everything I have killed." Did not understand how that could be true, but looking at safe in her mother's arms, he began to believe it. "We will leave in 1 hour," said. "We will use the back roads through the industrial sector. There is a place beyond the colony sensors where I have a vehicle hidden. We will leave New Terra, and you will tell the authorities that we forced our way into your home. You will tell them we overpowered you. You will tell them you had no choice." "They will not believe that," said. "No," agreed. "But without evidence they cannot prove anything else, and by the time they figure out what happened, we will be gone." She looked at with those cold eyes, and for just a moment he saw something human behind them. He saw a woman who had learned to kill, but who still knew how to feel. "Thank you," said, "for my daughter's life." Then she turned and began gathering supplies for their departure. The colony security found the bodies in the morning. There were 6 soldiers lying in the street outside his house, all of them dead. The news spread through the settlement like fire through dry grass. Everyone had a theory. Everyone had a story about what they thought had happened. Sat in the colony administrator's office and told the story that had instructed him to tell. He said that armed intruders had invaded his home late at night. They had claimed to be military personnel, but he did not believe them. They had forced their way inside and demanded supplies. He had resisted, and a fight had broken out. The intruders had killed the soldiers and then disappeared into the night. The administrator, a man named, listened carefully to every word. Could see that did not fully believe the story, but there was no evidence to contradict it. The intruders had left no trace. They had covered their tracks well. "Why would military personnel want supplies?" asked. "I do not know," said. I do not know who they were or where they came from. I just know that they are gone now and the soldiers are dead. Interviewed the neighbors. They confirmed that there had been a commotion the night before, but none of them had seen who caused it clearly. No one could give a description of the intruders. No one could prove that was lying. The Empire demanded answers. They sent representatives to the colony to investigate. They examined the bodies of their soldiers and found that they had been killed by someone who understood fighting in a way that was uncommon. But there was no weapon to trace. There was no evidence pointing to anyone specific. Eventually, the official report stated that the soldiers had been killed in a skirmish with unknown resistance fighters. The colony had nothing to do with it. They accepted this answer, but they were not happy. They stationed more soldiers in the area. They increased patrols. They made life harder for everyone. But was not arrested. There was no proof, and somehow that felt like the most important thing. During the week after left, found himself walking back to the warehouse where he had first found. The industrial sector was the same as it had always been, rust and dust and broken machines. But it felt different now. It felt like he was walking through a place where something important had happened. He thought about somewhere out in the darkness beyond the colony, safe with her mother. He thought about a woman who could kill without hesitation but who loved her daughter with the kind of fierce protection that transcended species. He thought about soup and kindness, and the choice to see someone as human even when they looked nothing like what humans looked like. 3 weeks after and left, received a message. It came through an encrypted channel that he did not know he had access to. The message was simple and brief. "We are safe, speaks of you often, she calls you friend. I have chosen to honor that friendship by sending you a warning. They will continue their search. They will find others like, there will be more resistance. There will be more conflict, but there is hope now. Because you showed kindness to one child, others will know that kindness is possible. That matters. That changes everything. Stay safe. Someday, perhaps we will meet again." After that, there was silence. Returned to his work as a scavenger. He returned to the warehouse and the ruins, searching for parts to fix and equipment to sell. But everything felt different now. He understood something that most people in the colony did not understand. He understood that one choice could cascade through the entire world and change things in ways that no one could predict. He understood that the Empire was not invincible. He understood that resistance was possible. He understood that mercy was not weakness but strength. 6 months later, rumors began to circulate through the colony. There were stories of a resistance movement coordinating attacks on slave transport ships. There were reports of organized groups of soldiers fighting back against their oppressors. The resistance was growing. They were losing territory. Some of the older colonists mentioned that they had heard the new resistance had a commander of exceptional skill. A woman who was nearly impossible to kill. A woman who led a battalion that called itself the Soup Contingent, a name that made no sense to anyone but had become feared throughout controlled space. Smiled when he heard these rumors. He did not speak about what he knew. He did not tell anyone about or the events of that night. Some secrets were better left unspoken. But he knew the truth. He knew that somewhere, a mother and daughter were fighting for freedom, and that it had all started with a bowl of soup and a human who chose to see past fear. One evening, as was preparing his supplies for another day of scavenging, his communication device chimed. Another encrypted message arrived. This one was longer. "The Empire is preparing for war. They have realized that the resistance is too organized, too dangerous, and too connected to human settlements. They are considering a military action against your colony. I am writing to tell you that you should prepare. Tell your people that alliance with the resistance is possible. Tell them that humans can stand together against the. Tell them that one act of kindness may not seem like much, but it can be the beginning of something that changes the entire galaxy. I am coming back to New Terra and I am bringing others with me. We will need to talk to your leaders. We will need to ask for help. Will you stand with us? Will you choose kindness again? Read the message 3 times. He understood that everything was about to change. The peace of his colony was ending. New decisions would have to be made. New alliances would have to be forged. But he knew his answer before he finished reading. He typed a response. Yes, I will stand with you. I will stand with all of you. Bring your daughter. Let her see that humans can be friends. Let her see that kindness can change the world. I will be waiting. He sent the message and stood at the window of his house, looking out toward the horizon. Somewhere beyond the darkness, a woman and a child were preparing to change everything. And it had all started with Soup, arrived at New Terra on a cold morning in early winter. She came with 5 other fighters and a small transport that carried supplies and weapons. She landed outside the colony boundaries, in the industrial sector where it had all started. Was waiting for her there, standing among the old machines and rust. When stepped out of the transport, ran toward faster than he had ever seen her move. She was taller now, stronger, but her eyes were still the same. She wrapped her arms around and held on like she would never let go. Friend said, speaking his language more clearly now, you kept your promise, you said you would wait. Held her carefully. I said I would always be here, I meant that. Approached them with a small smile on her face. She looked different now. There were more scars on her arms, and her eyes held more darkness than they had before. But there was also something stronger in her, something that came from having a purpose bigger than survival. The council wants to meet with you, said Tu. With you and other leaders from your colony, we have a proposal for you, an alliance between humans and against the Empire. But first, they need to understand something. They need to understand why you helped us. They need to understand that humans can be trusted. Nodded, he already knew what he would say to the council. He had been thinking about it for months. That evening stood in front of the colony leaders and told them the truth. He told them about finding Starving in the warehouse. He told them about sharing his soup. He told them about and the soldiers. He told them everything. Some of the leaders were angry. Some were afraid. But some of them understood. They understood that the Empire was a threat not just to the colony, but to all free beings in the galaxy. They understood that standing alone would eventually mean falling. The vote was close, but the colony agreed to an alliance with the resistance. Supplies and weapons began moving between the two groups. Information was shared. Strategies were developed. What happened next was not a simple military campaign. It was the beginning of a transformation that would take years. The resistance grew stronger with human support. New fighters joined the cause. Technology was shared. Tactics were improved. The Empire, which had seemed invincible, suddenly found itself facing an enemy that could match them move for move. Became a legend. Stories spread through, and human settlements about the woman in black who could not be defeated. About the commander who never lost a soldier unnecessarily. About the leader who built an army based not on fear, but on hope. The battalion was officially called the Defense Force, but soldiers called themselves the Soup Contingent. It was inside joke, a reminder that their entire movement had started with something simple and kind. The name confused outsiders, but to those who knew the story, it meant everything. It meant that mercy and kindness could be weapons as powerful as any gun. 2 years after his return, a formal delegation from the government arrived at New Terra. They came to offer official recognition of the human colony's support and to establish formal diplomatic relations. The treaty that was signed that day became the foundation for a new alliance that would shape the galaxy for generations to come. Attended the ceremony, but he did not take a position of power. He preferred to stay in the background, watching as history was being made. Found him afterward and gave him something that he had never expected to receive. For she said, handing him a small crystal that glowed with soft light. From the council, a memory crystal. It contains a record of everything that happened, everything that you did. It is a thank you, but it is also a promise. We will never forget. The people will remember this kindness for as long as our species exists. Held the crystal carefully. It felt warm in his hands, and the light pulsed like a heartbeat. "Is that all?" asked with a smile. "No medal, no title." Laughed. It was a real laugh, not something I'd ever heard from her before. "You can be director of relations with the Alliance if you wish. You can have power and authority and everything that comes with it." Shook his head. "No, I like being a scavenger. I like finding things that are lost and bringing them back to life. That feels right to me." "Then that is what you will do," said. "But you will do it knowing that you have changed the galaxy. You will do it knowing that your choice mattered." Spent the next 10 years watching the Alliance grow stronger. More colonies joined the effort. Occupied territories were liberated. Slaves were freed. The empire that had seemed eternal began to crack and crumble. Grew into a young woman who became a diplomat and a peace advocate. She traveled between human and worlds, helping to build understanding and friendship between the species. She spoke often of and the day he gave her soup, and how that simple act had changed everything. Continued his work as a scavenger. He explored the ruins of the old world and found valuable things hidden in the dust. But he also became something more. He became a symbol, a living reminder that one person could change history. Students came to him asking how he had been so brave. Researchers wanted to document his story. Leaders wanted his advice. But always came back to the same answer. He said that he had not been brave. He had simply been kind. He said that kindness was not complex. It was simple. When you saw someone suffering, you helped them. That was all there was to it. On a quiet evening, stood alone in the warehouse where everything had started. The rust and dust were still there, but the machines had been cleared away. The space had been transformed into a memorial, a place where people came to remember the beginning of the Alliance. He thought about how one choice had created ripples that spread across the galaxy. He thought about how kindness could be stronger than weapons. He thought about a small blue girl who had been starving, and a woman who had learned that humans could be trusted. He thought about soup. A message arrived on his communication device. It was from, "I am coming home tomorrow. I want to bring my daughter to meet you. I want to show her where it all started. I want her to understand that kindness is how change happens. The empire is finally ending. What we build next will be something new, something better. And it all began with you, with one bowl of soup and a choice to see someone as a person instead of a stranger." Looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a civilization was being built on the foundation of mercy and alliance. Somewhere out there, and her daughter were traveling toward him. Somewhere out there was still fighting, still protecting, still remembering the day when a human gave her daughter soup. And it had all started here, in a warehouse filled with rust and dust and broken dreams. It had started with a choice, and that choice had changed everything. Smiled at the stars and waited for tomorrow to come. He waited for the next chapter of a story that would continue for generations. He waited for the proof that kindness was never wasted, that compassion could transform worlds, and that the smallest gesture could become the seed from which entire galaxies transform.